Nine the Phantom, aka Konoe Mercury, is a bunch of things. She's rebellious, she's temperamental, impulsive, violent, among a bunch of other things that some people wouldn't overall like in a person. Nine is also somewhat distrustful of men, as her father, Shuichiro, was pretty much the only man she knew as a child, and considering he was an asshole, it sort of screwed up her perception on dudes. For example, Cosma, who she literally didn't like the moment she saw him, and funny enough, that would come into play later in her life in a harsh way. And also Ragna, who she didn't trust in the beginning because, I mean, hell, the moment she sees any man around Celica, she goes into angry mode. And, I mean, it makes sense why, but I'll get to that in a minute. But while Nine being prickly and somewhat hard to get she's pretty prickly, she's really hard to get along with, she's quite smart. She's very smart, she's hardworking, and she's very dedicated to those she cares about, especially if you're her family or her closest friends like Trinity. Obviously, family in this case excludes Shuichiro because he was, kind of a dick. So having to grow up with only her sister, as, Celica's and Nine's mother had died, and her father, Shuichiro, was super neglectful, Nine had essentially had to grow up faster than she was really meant to in order to care for Celica, even when she got into her adult years. Now, Nine as a young woman was essentially the hardest point of her life. She learned about the existence of the Black Beast, with her father being rumored to have caused it, and later having to watch her asshole father die in a pathetic way, which they actually cut from Chrono Phantasma. I don't know why they couldn't put that in there, but whatever. Anyway, having to constantly watch over Celica, as Celica will often wander off, and no one will ever be able to find her. And Nine definitely wasn't able to, get good trying to find her, because even her own sense of direction was bad, to the point where she had to kind of, use teleportation magic to even find Celica half the time. And, also being, Nine was also the person who would come to be the overall savior of humanity during the Dark War. Nine had exactly 1 year to create the Ars Magus, the Ars Armagus, the Nox Nectoris, and gather the 6 heroes in order to fight back the Black Beast. Now, she worked herself tirelessly to the bone, with the thoughts of, her failing and being unable to save all of her family and friends weighing heavily on her mind. Not just them, but humanity as a whole. She had 1 year to work day in and day out to try to figure out a way to take down this beast who exists outside of logic. So trying to figure out this giant creature that exists technically outside of your reality, that something that you can't even comprehend, a very, like nuclear warheads is not going to be able to kill the Black Beast, because, I mean, it may seem like something extremely powerful, but at the same time, the Black Beast exists outside of logic, outside of our reality. So there's no way that conventional weaponry will kill it. So Nine had to find a way around it. She tried teaching humanity sorcery, but upon learning that no one can really use magic all that much, she just tried to find her own way to find a bigger, a better solution, or to help humanity fight back. Because there's no way she wanted them to get killed off like that. Hell, Nine was so desperate, she had to call upon the help of Yuki Terumi of all people, since he had the info, the know-how, and the power she needed in order to fight back the Black Beast, and she had to use the Mind Eater on him to keep tabs on him all the time so he wouldn't be running rampant. So she had to take the risk of even unlocking Terumi in the first place. She also had to create one of the Nox, aka, being Minerva in this case. She had to create Minerva in order to protect Celica and keep her company, since Nine had to find a way to keep Celica in check. They were, they were during a war. There was no way that Nine could, constantly keep eyes on Celica and whatnot. And she had kind of repurposed one of the Nox in order to protect Celica, because she couldn't afford Celica to run off. Hell, Celica was even kidnapped by 2 of the 10 sages, in this case being 7 and 8, and they wanted to absorb Celica within the Take Migazuchi in order to fight back the Black Beast. Hell, at one point, Nine was kind of forced to use Celica as a bait to lure in the Black Beast, which obviously stressed out Nine, as Celica could have easily been killed. But luckily, they got lucky in that case that she didn't get killed at all, but she'd essentially be used as bait. And seeing Nine having to see your only family get used as a bait against a giant beast you're trying to kill is... I can totally can't blame her for freaking out over something like that, and having been forced to do such a thing is, heartbreaking. So after the Dark War, and once, Nine got married, she was a very doting mother to her daughter Konoe, and a very flirting yet loving wife to Jubei. Now, I mentioned before that Nine already had a screwed up perception on men because of her father, and You know, seeing how she hooked up with Jubei of all people and had his child. Yeah, that really says something about her perception on dudes. So even after all that, even after saving the world, being teaming together with the 6 heroes to beat the beast, creating the weapons that will eventually take down the beast, even after vanquishing the Black Beast, getting married, having Konoe, earning her happy ending, she still gets killed off by Terumi after he breaks control of the Mind Eater, thanks to manipulating Trinity, and gets thrown straight into the boundary. And that's the end of that. But not really the end of that, because within the boundary, Nine went completely apeshit. Now she learned about the truth of this world, that the Origin would use the Master Unit Amaterasu to reset time all the way back to the Dark War, constantly looping events, which would lead Nine to having to create the R's and the Nox that in that 1 year span of time, essentially on repeat over and over and over and over and over again. And she even learned a bunch of other things while she was in there. She learns that Celica would get killed by Terry at the church. She learned that her father was actually a part of the experiment that created the Black Beast before the Dark War. She learned that her family would suffer and being fractured amongst each other. Nine had to witness these events on repeat for God knows how long, stuck in the boundary, going insane over the course of time. She even found about the Prime Field War, which gave Nine even more of a reason to get mad about the state of the fake world they all existed in. Now, Nine was later pulled out of the boundary and was made a servant of Izanami, going under the name Phantom, and essentially being used as a puppet by Phantom. She had to work alongside with Terumi, and the person who actually just killed her, so she kind of had to deal with that too, even though she really couldn't do much because she was just Phantom. It's not really explicitly said how much control she had as Phantom. I wanted to believe that she was going to just completely control that, she would, if it's Terumi or Relius or Izanami would summon her, she would just immediately go to their side because there's nothing she could have done. And, being released from her restraints and letting Nine run wild gave her the chance of testing everyone, testing the chosen ones, testing humanity to see if they have what it takes to save the world, showing them their dreams and their desires, and then just immediately breaking their dreams and desires right in front of them to see if they're strong enough to face Izanami. And even though she did act like a bully to most of these characters, and she was cruel in her methods, she still meant well. The Nine was already broken at this point, and even full-on snapped before her fight with Ragna, but even after all that, even after the way she treated people, her intentions were still noble. A bunch of major players in the BlazBlue world have beef with the Master Unit Amaterasu, and Nine was no different. Nine went through great lengths to create the 11th hidden Nox Nictoris, the Requiem, and with the Requiem, Nine would essentially be able to break down and rebuild the world, one that without Amaterasu, one where humanity will be able to decide their own fates, rather than having Amaterasu constantly hovering over them and easily changing time back on a dime. She was going to essentially destroy God and replace it with her own God. She went to the trouble of creating her own version of God because the God we have now is pretty shit. Amaterasu sucks. And then now Nine's like, yeah, Amaterasu sucks. And to be fair, she's in the right. Amaterasu does kind of suck. Like, again, Amaterasu, I already made a video about how Amaterasu had, a shit hand in life. But the point is having to constantly reset time because she didn't like the outcome. Everybody else did not like that, and somehow the villains were actually pretty much right. But funny enough, even before all that whole talking about how Amaterasu sucked did business, Nine's Act 2 arcade actually showed that Nine had fell so far that she was just going to make a world for only her and Celica to live in, damn everyone else, until that was changed, till she wants to test humanity and stuff like that. So this is where Ragna comes into play. Now Ragna obviously had to fight Nine, he's like, you're not the great hero that you used to be. I remember Nine, she was this great, powerful mage who, was really prickly, but she did care about everyone else. This Nine is not the person I see now. You may have the name of Nine, but you're not the Nine I know. Both Ragna and Nine are somewhat similar, people in a sense. And these are two characters that could understand each other the most if they weren't fighting one another, When you put Nine and Ragna side by side, you do see a lot of parallels between the two. And then Nine even went, even learning that Ragna was actually the central fiction, Obviously, because, Ragna being at the epicenter of all this, Amaterasu would rewind time if Ragna ever died. She placed her hatred onto Ragna, even though the central fiction, being the central fiction was something that Ragna did not sign up for. But even so, Ragna was like, it doesn't matter. 9, you gotta stop going crazy. We need to figure out a way to save Amaterasu, rather than, trying to destroy it. And I'm gonna find a way to save you too. So even during her fight with Ragna, she saw a vision of her sister. And, people used to rag on that event. It was like, oh, wow, Ragna was able to solo 9 because she got distracted that one moment. But I see it as a way of, like, Celica was the one person that was in 9's thoughts, even after she went insane. You could easily say that 9 went to such great lengths, which she said herself, that she went to such great lengths to help out everyone else, her family, humanity, etc., etc. But Celica was the one person always in the forefront. Even damn 9 herself, Celica was always that one person that she fought for. Doesn't matter what happened. She willingly threw herself out in a giant, she was forced to put her sister out in the war, even though she definitely didn't want to. She even told Celica herself, she just wants to make a world where Celica can just be happy. She witnessed her sister constantly getting killed by Terami in the church and a church fire and all that junk. She knew. And 9 just didn't want to have Celica to suffer through that again. You could honestly say that 9 did all this for mostly Celica, which technically she did. But even after she went insane, Celica was in her one thoughts. And then when she looked over at Celica in her fight, she just saw that younger version of Celica. The person that she essentially had to grow up and speed up her, speed up her maturity for that one person. And that one distraction, 9 seeing somewhat of a reason during her fight with Ragna, boom, he gets a good shot in and takes her down. And there's that. But even after 9 losing to him, Izanami arrives. She verbally insults 9, calling her pathetic and whatnot. And 9 still gets up, even though she's pretty much half dead at this point. She gets up and uses the Requiem along with the remaining bits of her own life force to bind Izanami. 9 tells Ragna that she can only buy him 1 week for them to find a solution how to beat Izanami and save the world, which directly mirrors the very same promise that Ragna made to 9 back during the Dark War, where he gave her a whole year to find a way to halt back the Black Beast, to create the Ars Magus, to create the Ars Armagus, to create the Nox, in order so she can save the world. And even to send off 9, Jubei later protects 9 from being skewered by news blades, and 9 peacefully passes on. She's glad to see her husband still cared and loved her despite how she treated him after becoming Phantom, because 9, being Phantom, she brutally injured Jubei, she verbally insulted him, treated him like shit. But even after all that, Jubei still loved 9 enough to, protect her. And 9, seeing that was a good way to send her off. I also like 9's portrayal in BBTAG, honestly. I think that's one of my favorites moments of 9, because despite still retaining her Phantom appearance, she's a lot more positive and kinder than she was in the mainline games. She's acting much like she did before her death at the hands of Terami. She's a lot more playful, she's friendly in her character interactions. And even the moment where she teams up with Jubei and her interactions with him, along with her ping pong battle in the story mode, where 9 is pretty wholesome and loving towards him, and even to the point where she's embarrassing Jubei, which you never really see Jubei get embarrassed. But yeah, I really do like 9, and I know there's a bunch of people who aren't fans of her, honestly. People really don't like her personality, or people just don't like her in general. But I really do like 9. I feel for her. She's this person who was dealt a bad hand in life. You don't really get to choose who your family, who you grow up with. But Celica seemed like a shining beacon in her life. And then even after, she finally got family, she finally was able to settle down, marry Jubei, have Konoe. She finally got the family that she really wanted. I mean, hell, you can even count, Trinity in that pile, because Trinity was her best friend. Trinity was pretty much the only friend 9 had outside of Celica and her, actual family. And then even after all that, even after gaining that happiness, she got it ripped away from her. After struggling for a whole year to get that happiness and to save the world so people can have a chance to live their lives, she got it taken away from her went insane being stuck in the boundary. And then, like, even after coming back, she was a lot more aggressive and angry and, not in the right mindset. She still wanted to help people. She still was going to try to do everything she could to save the world, even if she was playing for the bad guys. And I think that's what I like about 9. Even when she was at her worst, she still thought of everyone else. And I think that's why I like 9. Even when she was at her lowest state, she still tried to find the best way to help people. It wasn't just for her benefit. I mean, it was part of it, but it wasn't just for her benefit. Everyone else deserved the chance to live out their lives without having to deal with Amaterasu at every moment of their lives, having to put their lives on repeat or some dumb bullshit like Phenomena Intervention. And that's why I like 9.